The thunder cracked like a bullwhip across the darkening sky as Royce Barrett urged his weary horse through the driving rain. Lightning illuminated the desolate landscape of the Wyoming Territory, revealing nothing but endless prairie and the occasional twisted cottonwood. His leather duster was soaked through, and his horse's flanks heaved with exhaustion. "Easy, girl," he murmured to his mare, patting her neck. "We'll find shelter soon." As if summoned by his words, a warm glow appeared through the storm, lamplights spilling from the windows of a two-story boarding house. A weathered sign swayed violently in the wind. Magnolia's Rest, clean beds, hot meals. Royce had been riding for 3 days straight, delivering a herd to the railroad in Cheyenne. All he wanted was a dry bed and maybe some hot coffee. The boarding house looked like salvation itself. He dismounted in the muddy yard and led his horse to the small stable behind the building. The structure was well maintained, unusual for such an isolated location. Most places this far from civilization barely had 4 walls standing. The front door opened before he could knock. "Well, well," came a sultry voice. "Look what the storm blew in." A woman stood silhouetted in the doorway, tall, with auburn hair pinned up elegantly, and wearing a dress far too fine for frontier lodging. Behind her another woman appeared, shorter and blonde, with calculating blue eyes that seemed to take his measure in an instant. "Evening, ladies." Royce touched the brim of his hat. "Name's Barrett. I'm hoping you might have a room for the night." "Of course, sugar," the auburn-haired woman purred. "I'm Magnolia, and this is my partner, Belle. We've been expecting someone just like you." Something in her tone made Royce's hand instinctively drift toward his Colt, but he dismissed the feeling. The storm was making him jumpy. "Much obliged, ma'am. I can pay fair price." "Oh, we're not worried about payment," Belle said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Come in, out of that nasty weather." The interior of Magnolia's Rest was surprisingly luxurious. Persian rugs covered polished hardwood floors, and crystal lamps cast warm light over velvet furniture. Oil paintings in gilded frames adorned the walls, far too expensive for a simple boarding house. "Impressive place you have here," Royce observed, hanging his hat on a brass hook. "We cater to discerning clientele," Magnolia said, helping him out of his wet duster. Her fingers lingered on his shoulders longer than necessary. "You look like a man who appreciates the finer things." Belle appeared with a steaming mug, hot coffee with a splash of something stronger. "You look half frozen." The coffee was excellent, warming him from the inside out. The whiskey had a strange aftertaste, but after 3 days on the trail, anything would taste odd. "So, Mr. Barrett," Magnolia settled into a chair across from him, her dress rustling. "What brings you through our little corner of nowhere?" "Cattle drive. Just finished delivering a herd to Cheyenne." His words felt slightly thick. Must be the whiskey hitting harder than expected. "A successful rancher," Belle cooed, refilling his mug. "I do admire a man who works with his hands." The room seemed to sway slightly. Royce blinked hard, trying to focus. "Maybe I should turn in for the night." "Of course." Magnolia stood gracefully. "Belle, show Mr. Barrett to the blue room." As Royce followed Belle up the carpeted stairs, his legs felt unsteady. The whiskey must have been stronger than he thought. Belle's laughter seemed to echo strangely in the hallway. "Here we are." She opened a door to reveal a well-appointed bedroom with a 4-poster bed. "Sleep tight, sugar. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day." Royce awoke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains, his head pounding like a blacksmith's hammer. The events of the previous night felt hazy, dreamlike. He'd been more tired than he realized. Sitting up slowly, he noticed his gun belt hanging on the bedpost. Strange, he didn't remember removing it. His Colt was still in its holster, but something felt wrong. The weight was off. He checked the cylinder. Empty. A chill ran down his spine that had nothing to do with the morning air. Royce quickly dressed and crept to the window. His horse was gone from the stable. Voices drifted up from below, Magnolia and Belle talking in hushed, urgent tones. He pressed his ear to the floor. Should have worked by now. Stronger than the others. Check the cellar. The cellar. Royce's blood turned to ice. He eased open the bedroom door and crept down the hallway, avoiding the creaky floorboards. The women's voices came from the kitchen at the back of the house. Near the front entrance, he spotted a door he hadn't noticed the night before, partially hidden behind a tapestry. The cellar door. It was unlocked. The wooden steps groaned softly under his boots as he descended into darkness. The smell hit him first. Death, decay, and something else. Fear. At the bottom, he struck a match. The flame revealed a horror that made his stomach lurch. Bones, human bones scattered across the dirt floor. Scraps of clothing, personal effects, and a sheriff's badge, tarnished with age. In the corner sat a collection of wallets, watches, and jewelry. A small fortune in stolen goods. On a crude wooden table lay bottles of clear liquid and a mortar and pestle. Poison-making equipment. Royce understood now. Magnolia's Rest wasn't a boarding house. It was a trap. These women were Black Widows, luring travelers to their deaths and robbing them blind. A floorboard creaked above his head. "Mr. Barrett," Magnolia's voice called sweetly. "Breakfast is ready." Royce extinguished the match and felt his way back up the stairs in darkness. He had to get out, but his horse was gone and his gun was empty. Think, he told himself. These women had been doing this for years. They'd have contingencies. "There you are," Belle appeared in the hallway as he emerged from behind the tapestry. Her smile was predatory now. All pretense dropped. "Sleep well?" "Like the dead," he replied carefully. "How appropriate." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Magnolia's making her special eggs. You simply must try them." In the dining room, Magnolia stood over a plate of steaming eggs, a small vial of clear liquid in her hand. She looked up as they entered, quickly palming the vial. "Good morning, darling. I hope you're hungry." "Starving," Royce lied, taking his seat. The eggs smelled delicious, but he knew they meant death. As Magnolia turned to fetch coffee, Royce quickly switched his plate with Belle's. When she returned, he was cutting into the eggs with apparent relish. "Eat up, sugar," Belle said, lifting her fork. "It's going to be a long—" She stopped mid-sentence, staring at her plate. Then at his. Her face went pale. "Something wrong?" Royce asked innocently. Magnolia's hand moved toward a drawer, probably where she kept a backup weapon. But Royce was faster. He lunged across the table, grabbing her wrist. "I wouldn't," he said quietly. "I know what you ladies have been up to." Belle made a break for the door, but Royce caught her arm, spinning her back into the room. "The cellar was very educational," he continued. "How many men have you murdered?" "You don't understand," Magnolia hissed. "We had no choice. This territory takes everything from women. We had to take something back. By becoming killers? By surviving." Belle spat. "You men ride through here, taking what you want, leaving us with nothing. We decided to even the score." "There's a sheriff's badge down there," Royce said. "You killed a lawman." "Sheriff Morrison." Magnolia's voice turned bitter. "He was the worst of them. Thought his badge gave him the right to liberties. So you poisoned him." "We poisoned them all," Belle said defiantly. "Every man who thought he could use us, and right away." Royce felt a flicker of understanding, but it didn't excuse murder. "How many?" 17, Magnolia whispered. "Over 3 years." The number hit him like a physical blow. 17 men, probably with families, dreams, futures, all snuffed out by these women's twisted sense of justice. "There's a territorial marshal in Laramie," Royce said. "You're going to turn yourselves in?" Belle laughed harshly. "And hang?" "I don't think so." She lunged for the drawer Magnolia had been reaching for earlier. Her hand closed around a derringer just as Royce tackled her. They crashed to the floor, struggling for the weapon. The gun went off. Belle went limp beneath him, a spreading red stain on her dress. She'd been shot with her own weapon. Magnolia screamed and rushed at him with a carving knife. Royce rolled aside and she stumbled past him, the blade clattering across the floor. "It's over," he said, getting to his feet. "Belle's dead. You can come with me alive, or—" Magnolia looked at her partner's body, then at the knife just out of reach. Her shoulders sagged in defeat. "They'll hang me anyway," she said quietly. "Maybe. But that's for a judge to decide, not you." Royce found rope in the stable and bound Magnolia's hands. His horse was in a corral behind the house. They'd kept it as evidence of their latest victim. He also discovered a strongbox containing nearly $3,000 in cash and valuables. Blood money, Magnolia said as he loaded it onto his horse. Evidence, he corrected. Some of this might find its way back to the families of your victims. The ride to Laramie took 2 days. Magnolia barely spoke, lost in her own thoughts. When she did talk, it was about her past, how she'd come west as a young bride, only to watch her husband die of cholera, how she'd struggled to survive alone until she met Belle, another widow with her own tragic story. "We weren't always killers," she said on the second night as they camped under the stars. "We tried to run an honest boarding house at first. What changed? Men like Sheriff Morrison, men who thought our grief made us easy prey." Her voice hardened. "The first one we killed was self-defense. He tried to force himself on Belle. After that, it got easier to murder innocent travelers. None of them were innocent," she snapped. "They all wanted the same thing. You don't know that, don't I?" She looked at him with hollow eyes. "What did you want when you saw us in that doorway? Just a room and a meal?" Royce was quiet for a long moment. He'd be lying if he said he hadn't noticed how attractive both women were, hadn't felt a stirring of interest. But that didn't justify murder. "Wanting and taking are different things," he said finally. Marshal Tom Brennan listened to Royce's story with growing horror. The evidence was overwhelming. The bodies in the cellar, the stolen goods, Magnolia's confession. 17 men, Brennan shook his head. "How did nobody notice?" "Drifters mostly," Royce explained. "Men traveling alone. Easy to disappear without anyone asking questions." Magnolia was tried and convicted within a month. As she'd predicted, the sentence was death by hanging. But on the morning of her execution, she was found dead in her cell, poison smuggled in by a sympathetic guard who'd lost his own wife to frontier violence. Royce used the reward money to buy a small ranch outside Cheyenne. He never married, never quite trusted easily again. But sometimes, on stormy nights when the wind howled across the prairie, he'd think about Magnolia's rest and wonder how many other dark secrets lay hidden in the vast wilderness of the American frontier. The boarding house stood empty for years, slowly falling into ruin. Travelers gave it a wide berth, spooked by stories of the Black Widows of Wyoming. Eventually, the prairie reclaimed it entirely, leaving only a foundation and the memory of the night when a tired rancher's simple request for shelter nearly cost him his life. In the end, justice had been served, but at a price that haunted everyone involved. The frontier was a hard place that made hard people, and sometimes the line between victim and villain became as blurred as the horizon on a stormy night.